Hi, I'm Beth Callahan. I'm the editor of the WarrenCountyPost.com, and as many of you know or are aware of, we have a presidential election coming up November 5th. Because we've been so bombarded with presidential election information, sometimes we forget or often overlook that we have other races that are going on that are being challenged that will impact us at the state and federal level. While none of the candidates running for our local county offices are being challenged, Warren County residents will be choosing who they want to represent them in Columbus as a State House representative and who they'll be sending to Washington, D.C. for a U.S. House representative. Because it is so hard to find out or even know who is running for these positions, I felt obligated as the editor of the WarrenCountyPost.com to give you, the reader, a chance to meet the candidates and also give the candidate a chance to let their voice be heard. Remember, the WarrenCountyPost.com is just a small digital media platform, trying to give you, the Warren County, Ohio resident, some local news information the best we can on a very limited budget. So with that said, here we go.
Warren County is a sound. Oh, Ohio's place. Fun all around. Yeah. Warren County, feel the beat. Every corner fun to meet. Oh, from the rivers to the trains. Dance all night, feel no pain. Yeah. City lights, small town nights. All together feel so right. Get too small, let's unite. Warren County, pure delight.
That's Cleveland Canova.
Canova, like Casanova,
I'm
but
not-
Canova.
Tonight we have with us Cleveland Canova. Hi, Cleveland. Thank you so much for stopping by. Warren County is an interesting place because we really don't have a main media. We lost all our little local papers. And so our community doesn't get to know any of our candidates. So I'm doing this so people could come and watch and find out who you are, what you're about, and get to know you, because it's really hard for somebody to get to know somebody just getting the mailers or seeing a sign. I mean, what does that really mean? So, how did you end up in Warren County?
Well, thank you for having me, Beth, and I appreciate the invitation. And this is a great way to get to know the people of Warren County. I ended up I'm from Louisiana, and I got married in 1993. And my wife at the time was getting her master's at CCM. So I had kids back, one child back in Louisiana. Of course, my parents were alive at that time, but we moved here in 93, and I've been in this area for the latter part of 30 years in Warren County.
So, do you live in Mason or
I live in Lebanon right
Lebanon?
now.
Okay, so you're a Lebanon guy. Our county seat, Lebanon, is Warren County's county seat, for those that don't know. Okay, and you are running for State Rep District
56.
56.
That includes Lebanon, South Lebanon, Mason, Deerfield Township, and Turtle Creek Township. Part of Morrow and Mainville too, but that's the district.
And as a state rep, you stay here in the state and would make decisions in Columbus, right? You're not going to Washington, D.C.
No, this is not a U.S. House seat. This is a state House seat. And we really need representation there. As a Democrat, for 26 out of the last 33 years, Republicans have held a trifecta. That means control the House, control the Senate, and the governorship. 14 consecutive years they've held that much power in government. So it's time for Democrats to be able to get up there. Right now it's 67 to 32. There's one seat that's vacant, so there's 100, but 99 are occupied. So yeah, I'm trying to balance the scales a bit.
So what made you decide to run? Is that it? You want to balance the scales, or is there something pulling at your heart that's like, I've got to run for this position?
Absolutely. As a former American history teacher, and I used to coach high school football in Cincinnati public school systems, I've always been a fan on the outside of politics. And being a father of 3 daughters, I have one daughter who lives in Louisiana, one daughter at the time of the Dobbs decision in 2022 lived in Florida, and my other daughter that just graduated from Mason High School is 18 in Ohio. And when the Dobbs decision passed with the Supreme Court, ruled, I had to make 3 separate phone calls, 3 separate conversations with my daughters about reproductive freedom, and it was intensely painful to do so. It was uncomfortable. We had to see what options were for them. For my daughter in Florida, she lived in Tampa. She would have to drive because of the trigger laws of 6 weeks abortion bans. She would have to drive up to 700 miles for reproductive care. So I thought it was time for me to get involved. The opportunity came up in my district. I was approached by Kelly Sackles, who was the head of the Democratic Party in Warren County, and she thought I'd be a good fit. And so that's what drove me to this, my passion.
That's interesting because recently I always thought when they were talking about reproductive care and abortion, it was basically a woman choosing to end the pregnancy on her own. It was just recently when I found out it's like anything that's considered, like if you have a miscarriage and you go in to get a D&C, if you lose a baby as a stillborn and you get induced, they label all that as abortion.
It's the ending of a pregnancy, ectopic pregnancies, even fetal fatal anomalies, anything that ends a pregnancy. Now, an abortion could still deliver a healthy fetus baby, but the pregnancy is ending. Abortion is the ending of the pregnancy, not necessarily ending of the fetus or baby to be born.
And that's what I'm finding out a lot of people don't realize, because when they say abortion, they just thought it was killing a baby. They don't realize it's because I would have to say every time then you have a baby, your body is terminating
A pregnancy.
the pregnancy
Naturally.
naturally.
Correct.
So
And women's health is complicated. And as a man, I've learned so much about that. And that's one of the things I wanted to make sure that I did as a candidate. Earlier this year in City Beat magazine, I wrote an op-ed about how men can get involved, because men's voices are largely silent about this issue because of lack of knowledge, of not feeling like it's an issue that affects them. But as a father of 3 wonderful daughters, it does affect me. It does affect men, but men sadly have been silent through this, for the most part.
I think a lot of it is people don't understand the term abortion. So
it's even hard to say, isn't it?
It is.
Sometimes it's hard to say. It's got a stigma and a shame attached to it, and that is sad. And that's it comes from different areas. It comes from the religious right, and it makes it shameful for a woman. Like all the ending of pregnancy, or pregnancy in and of itself, is 100% dependent on what the woman does, and no pressure at all is put on anyone else, and that's a lot. It's a lot to carry.
Yeah, and it's a word that really needs to be looked into, I think, more, because a lot of people don't understand it. I was like, it's almost kind of like the word killed. If you've been, they were killed, you automatically think murder, or you think something bad happened. But, well, cancer is bad, but you could be killed by cancer, you could be killed. So killed has a big meaning to it, and that's what I'm finding abortion means. It's not,
a lot of things to different people. It has different connotations, to be sure. 92% of all terminations of pregnancies, abortions, happen under 15 weeks. 5% happen between 15 weeks and 21 weeks, and only 2.5% happen after 21 weeks. And usually that's life of the mother, predominantly, or fetal anomalies, things that are catastrophic to that pregnancy. So we're not talking about. And France this past year enshrined abortion rights in their constitution to 15 weeks. And then after 15 weeks, it still remains a decision between the doctor and the patient, but there's 2 doctors involved as opposed to 1 after 15 weeks. But it still has full reproductive freedom in France, and they enshrined it in their constitution, as we did in issue 1 last year in November. We voted to enshrine reproductive freedom in our constitution. 57% of Ohioans voted for that, 53% in Warren County. So that means, since it's a red county, as we know, it's 55-45. That means Republicans, 7%, or independents, did bridge that gap and say, yeah, women should have abortion rights and reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy.
So that's what really drove you to run.
Absolutely. And there are some, it's a macro. When you zoom out too, I know that this election is a big one. being a history teacher. This is history with a capital H, this election, and we're looking at something that may be one of the more consequential elections of my lifetime.
So that's what I was going to say. What are some of the skills that you're bringing that you feel that you would bring to this position?
Well, again, being my background in history, I know constitutional law. I understand how the republic works. I understand what our role is as citizens in it and as government officials. I'm a bit of a constitutional originalist. I believe the Constitution was a great roadmap. We've had 27 changes to it, which is great, but those changes had to take place because of 2/3 majority. So those changes were absolutely needed. What I bring to Ohio is to bring some commonality, to take the tribalism out of politics anymore. My opponent, unfortunately, is supported by the Federal Society and the Heritage Foundation and some MAGA organizations that do support him. And unfortunately, he was at the J.D. Vance rally in Middletown. Him and Mayor Mercer was there behind Senator Lang, applauding when violence was inferred with the bikers for Trump. Like, I'm glad to have you guys on our side for a civil war breaks out. We got to get away from that. That's rhetoric. That's dangerous, and it has no place in politics. Not serious politics.
Well, yeah, I've heard some wild stories about the past and history about boxing fights and stuff.
Oh yeah. Oh, this and to your point, this kind of tribalism or the parties going out. This is not new. There've been fist fights in the House of Representatives in the early 20th century, and this is. But it's here's what's new. Social media has it where it's the play-by-play. You and I, I'll speak for myself. I'm old enough to remember we used to get the paper, the morning paper. If you're rich, you got the afternoon paper, right? But you'd read the paper and you read the paper and you sat it down.
Right.
That was it. And you talked about politics. Now it's every minute, every second, play by play. And we're not built to be able to understand or process that information. And it just overloads us. And it's propaganda and it's really poisoning the political landscape.
It's true. Now here, according to Warren County Board of Elections, 70% of our voters do not claim to be of any party. 70%, so 7 out of 10 people.
That's a lot.
If elected, would you show more allegiance to your party's platform or more allegiance to your constituents?
That's an excellent question. I'm bound by my constituency, but there are some fundamental policies that I follow as a Democrat, as a progressive, because I see myself more as that. The party of Reagan, and I grew up in that time period. This is not the party of the Republican Party today. It's a cult of personality for the most part. I do feel like they'll get back to it, but for right now, it's not. So there are issues that are important to the people of Warren County that surpass political parties, and I'll be able to parse those out in Columbus.
Okay. Both of our parties are very divided right now. The Democrat Party has its fights going on. The Republican Party has its fights going on.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the policies that you really like about the Democratic Party that you're like, this is good, I like this? And then maybe a policy or two you think like, I don't know. And the same with the Republican. What you think you like about the Republican and what you don't like?
I'll start with the Republican Party. And historically, the Republican Party is conservative, and conservatism is part of our DNA as a country. I understand that. And some of those values are very important to us, nationalism, but we can't let those get out of control. There are both factions that are radical on each side of these parties. We all know that. And that's who makes the most noise, right? The loudest barking going on. So I understand what everyone wants the same things. We want safety at home. We want our kids to be safe. We want education. We want our utility bill not to be crazy when it's really hot outside, right? We want our groceries to be normal where we're like, okay, I can afford this, rent, all those basic things that we do every day. Geopolitics and the Ukrainian war, all those things are global issues that do affect us, but as far as my constituency, you have to move those two layers separately. Like, I have my beliefs about geopolitics, but I also know what's important to my constituency. From the Democratic side, freedom is what I believe in. Progressive. We're a pluralistic society, and some of those policies we're getting away from. It's called a neoliberalism. We're getting away from neoliberalism, which was done through Reagan, Clinton, Bush, and Obama. We're consuming as a country. We have to get back to producing as a country. And the Green New Deal, although some unpopular, it is renewable energy is the new industry. It is the steel of the 21st century. It is the automobile of the 21st century. China, Russia, these other countries are leaving us behind in solar panels, all types of hydroelectric power, anything renewable. So we're starting to break away from that. So it's going to be hard to do that, because to go from consumers to break that neoliberalism. That's some of the policies I like, that we're moving in a direction of producing again as a country, as opposed to just consuming. So that's one of the Democrat. And of course, I want reproductive freedom enshrined in the Constitution of the United States. I think, in the state of Ohio, 51% is populated by women. We cannot, back in, quick analogy, in 2022, I had cancer. I had a pretty rare form of cancer. It almost killed me. I think it did. but I also had high blood pressure and high cholesterol. Well, I wasn't really talking about that. We can put that on the back burner. You've got a tumor. We have to, it could kill you. So I kind of see that as we can progress, but if we don't, the elephant in the room on top of the elephant is reproductive freedom. Women don't have autonomy and freedom. The rest of the stuff is not that urgent to me.
Okay. Let's see. I have another question.
I know you do.
How important is it to be with bipartisanship? I mean, to work with the other party. I mean,
it's critical, right? Back in the day, Tip O'Neill, Republicans, they would go fight, then they'd go out to dinner, they'd drink, and they would agree on things. Now it's governance is frozen, it's entrenched, and do I understand why authoritarianism is catching on in this country? Because the system we have now is not working that well. I mean, everybody digs it. It's trench warfare. Unfortunately, my only encounter with Adam Matthews is he threw me out of an event for Bernie Moreno and J.D. Vance back in February. He didn't even introduce himself. I was there I said, can I attend? They said, write your email address down. It was at Manor House. Mm-hmm. It was Bernie Moreno, J.D. Vance. He wasn't nominated then for vice president. I was like, I want to hear some ideas. Out the corner of my eye, I think it was Adam Matt pointing me, security to remove me because they didn't want a guy from the Democratic Party in that room. And I thought that was sad. He could have introduced himself. I would have left, but he didn't have to have the security throw me out. But that's my first encounter with my opponent. So I know it's necessary. I do know it's necessary to have that. But power and the quest for it can make people do things that they're not really comfortable doing. But I know it's important. It has to happen.
Yeah, otherwise, house divided cannot stand.
It cannot. It will not. And nothing gets done. And that's the frustration with people and the public. I meet people all the time. And I'm like, I wish you're idealistic now. And when you get there, it'll change you. And that's this. I get the bitterness. It's true. I've seen it happen time and time again.
How important, one of the things for me is being a journalist, freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. And when COVID hit, people were being shut down off of Facebook and different things for freedom of speech. What kind of role do you think freedom of speech should play? I mean, because I know people could put things out there that are true lie and can really damage. That's why there's libel and slander, lawsuits.
Of course.
To stop people from saying their thoughts, though, even though their thoughts can be wrong, because people do have the ability to think, and somebody just needs to correct them if they're like really wrong. I know social media has really changed that because people get on there and just really start tearing each other.
And it's abused.
Yeah.
It's used for propaganda. It's not just people just going, oh, I put something out there by mistake. It is a tool. My personal feeling, I think all social media before a major election should be shut down 2 months prior, 60 days prior. I don't think social media should be, because it's been abused. Remember when Congress in the 90s were meeting about email? They're like, what's going on with this email, this internet? The genie was out of the bottle. And I think this has gotten away from Congress. If you've watched those congressional hearings with Mark Zuckerberg, the senators are asking questions. So if you unplug it and plug it back in, I mean, what? I mean, if you take your phone to your car, does it know where you're going? I mean, these are basic questions, but the technology has outpaced legislation. So what do I feel? I'm an originalist. First Amendment, absolutely. I want people to be able to say what they need to say, but to purposely mislead, to use that propaganda, to weaponize it, also needs some guardrails, I would think. And that's what. But I want to be careful with that because First Amendment's important. We got to have people being able to feel like they can say something without being persecuted for it.
Persecuted or arrested or
something. No, we don't return in a fascist state. No, but it just like anything else with freedom, you kind of have to rail it in a little bit, or at least put a disclaimer on it. Like, and they have. There's like this has been proven to be false information. They'll tag it, but it's like I said, freedom of when the printing press and newspapers started getting distributed in the late 18th century, they had the same issue. They were propaganda machines. I'm from Louisiana. If you remember a guy named Huey Long, the populist. Well, think of Donald Trump, but a liberal. Like he's like capping 10 millionaires, share the wealth, a chicken in every pot. He was an absolute progressive, deeply loved and deeply hated. But he was really, really popular, and he printed his own newspaper because the Times-Picayune, the flagship paper of Louisiana, was printing negative stories. He started the National Review paper down there, whatever it was he called it, and it printed stories that were favorable to him. So that free speech is that sword, but it does have two sides to it, two blades. It cuts both ways.
And people are funny because they won't read or watch the other side to get
confirmation bias.
Yeah.
It's confirmation bias, and we see that. I was driving here. There's a lot of yard signs. There's a lot of them, and those people are kind of in that bubble, and it works the other way too. When I talk to people that are progressives and liberals, they're like, they get really, really upset, and we got to lower the temperature. I feel like after this election is over, the temperature will get lowered. Every once in a while, we have to figure out who we are as a country, and I think we're at one of those points.
So. Well, anything else you want to say to the people that might be watching this from your heart? What you're hoping the outcome will be, or what you plan on doing once you get there. I know as a state rep, you create legislation. Is there something that's really eating at your heart that you would want to see passed?
Yeah, there are some legislation I'd like to see. We have the voucher program that's siphoning away public funds. It seems to be subsidizing private schools, which are outside the realm of public scrutiny and any type of things that are monitoring that. So I'd like to see the public funds kept in the public schools. We have three of the largest healthcare organizations, companies, Fortune 500 companies in the country, in Ohio, yet we rank about 36 in the country in healthcare in the state. So I'd like to see some legislation that would affect people getting healthcare. Because if I didn't have good health insurance, my surgeries cost with cancer and my stay in the hospital was over $600,000. It would have bankrupted me. We spend $13,000 plus a person in this country, in the state, on healthcare. That's double other countries, and we have much less access. And our eyes and our teeth for some reason are attached to our bodies, so that's a separate policy. All those things make a difference to real people in this county, and I want to go to Columbus and really affect that, because I'm not going to affect national policy there, but I'm going to affect people's daily lives, and that's what I hope to do.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you so much, Beth. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
I need it. Thank you.